Here we go. Okay, so sorry everybody who's listening. I'm going to do a slight reintroduction. I am so excited that I have Pamela Brookes here from Dog on a Log, who has been such an incredible partner for us for this library program as we try to introduce decodable books and resources that enable more parents and caregivers to have options who want to work with their children. And you know, this month we've been presenting a lot of fundamental information. Faith Burkowski presented an amazing 90-minute presentation of what everybody needs to know about literacy. And when she gets to different areas, she talks about what resources will help, because one thing that I feel like as a mom, as a parent, I do know this world now, but sometimes I need some help. I don't have the literacy skills to sit down with the child, and if they're struggling here, know what to do or where to turn. I need some guide. I need some guides. And so Faith did such an amazing job of saying, well, this is what you could do for phonological awareness, for sound, for some early pre-reading skills. I'm going to talk very simply here and try not to use jargon or use terminology. And you know, these are 10 activities you could do to build pre-reading skills, or you can use Pamela Brookes' Dog on a Log books to just guide you through some of these activities. So I'm really excited that you're here today to talk about your books and your story, because what's so fascinating is that you are a parent of a child, of a daughter that struggled to read, and out of frustration, you created a whole series and a website and a program. Excuse me, I'm getting so excited about it. So, you know, I think if you could talk about why you wrote these books, how you had these ideas, and even your work with Dr. Mather, your connection, I think people would be interested to hear.
Well, so my daughter has severe dyslexia, when she was little, we knew there was something. There just was something. I will say, for who wonders, a child with a speech delay, a child who is having trouble understanding, called somebody and said, I think she had because she had that dyslexia thing, because I really didn't know much about dyslexia. And they said, wait until she's 8. Fortunately, in some areas I didn't. And anybody who's a mom knows those regrets of, oh, gee, I wish I had known this 4 years ago kind of thing, especially for a child with severe dyslexia. You know, those early preschool years are so important in developing the pre-reader skills, the phonological awareness skills. And so I did, when she was 6, I did search out help, trying to find, when you're a homeschooler, sometimes when you're a homeschooler, it's easier because you're on your own. And so you know that you have to look. Whereas when your kid is going to school, you would think the schools are there to help you. And that's not the feedback a lot of people give us. As a matter of fact, I have a friend who's a special education. She's a reading specialist. She has a master's degree, and she was working with high school kids. And she and I actually took a class one time. This is several years into my thing, and I knew more than she did about evidence-based reading instruction. And she was horrified that she's like, why wasn't I taught any of this? So when you have a kid who's going to school, the teachers aren't prepared. So when you're homeschooling, at least you know you're on your own. You can look for resources. So when she was 6, I did find somebody who eventually became her tutor, but at that point she was not able to. Finding a tutor is hard and it's really expensive. We're fortunate that by not contributing so much to retirement, not doing family vacations, we were able to afford a tutor. But they got us so hooked up with the Mind Play program. So anybody who knows mindplay.com, that was a good start when we didn't have a tutor. Anyway, all of these years I was like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And when I finally started learning what can I do, so let me we got hooked up with the tutor. I thought we're good to go. And then the tutors, and then I'm expecting reading materials. And she's like, there's more now than there were even a few years ago when I started this. I got her a few decodable books with 8 sentences. Well, for a typically learning child, that might be adequate. Maybe, maybe not. But for a child with dyslexia, especially severe dyslexia, after they read it a few times, they memorize it. I mean, 8 sentences, they memorize. And so now she can read it. She doesn't even have to open the cover of the book. And so she needed decodable chapter books, and there really weren't any available. There certainly weren't any systematic ones that would change, you know, slowly introduce more phonics. And I was as despondent then as I was when we couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I finally found a source. It was going to cost me like $50 to get books, a few books that I didn't even know was going to work. And I'm sitting in the grocery store parking lot going, another $50 for books that she might read or not read. And then I went, wait a minute, I'm a writer. And so I started writing them for her. And because I knew what other people were going through, that, you know, I wasn't the only one with that, I created them into the series. And then in time, yes, I did get hooked up with Dr. Mather, and I created the pre-reading series. I wrote the first parent and teacher guide, teaching a struggling reader when mom's experienced with dyslexia. Because if I had had that book when my daughter was 2 years old and I was wondering what is going on, I mean, you can sit down, you can read it for free on my website, you can get it free many places, you can download. So for libraries, if you don't have it in your budget to buy the book, and by the way, you might want to look at Amazon for the paperback version. I got it really cheap there. If only I had had that information that I could have read in an hour. If I didn't use, there's over 100 links. So I think I've deviated from exactly what you said, but if you want to push me back towards what other information would be useful.
Well, no, this was great, because I think we want to hear the story, and what you said is one of the reasons we work with libraries, in that in school, often if children do get any practice in connected text, it's short passages, it's not books, and certainly not, you know, not anything they could open up like any other child who wants to practice their reading or something, anything aligned to skills. So you did answer, you did give a really good explanation of Dog on a Log. But my next question to you would be then, as a parent, especially now that, I mean, homeschooling, I used to, okay, there's the homeschool community. I'm like, wait a minute, we're all in the homeschool community. I mean, maybe some kids, okay, you know, my daughter's virtual, her district is virtual, but I think it's the alternative for all of us. And you know, we're living in the homeschool world now. And a lot of kids, even kids that don't struggle to read, young children that are learning to read, that should be, I mean, everybody should be taught to read the same way. You know, parents are in a situation now that they want to know what's the best thing they could do. Where can they start? So I would say, you know, we're not going to get into too much detail, but I think that where it you know, what a lot of parents would want to know, especially of young children, are where to start with the pre-readers and you know, some of the activities. I mean, it is self-explanatory, but if you could talk through, and even talk through that story about those boys that you worked with those books.
So as I was writing the pre-reader, or writing the chapter books, and then let me just show you, I have, oops. First of all, so for a kid who's in class, these pretty much look like any other book that any other kid's going to read. This is a chapter book. You can see, no, this is the Let's Go book. This is the chapter book. You can see how many words are on that page. When you are a new reader, a struggling reader, that's a lot of words. That's a huge amount of words. Whereas this is the same, you can see it's the same title, the same cover, sort of, but this has only just a few words, and so it's not as overwhelming. So I was working on this, and I had written, here we have the Teaching a Struggling Reader book, and I thought, well, that I'm learning more, I'm learning that all kids learn to read the same. The difference between a typical learner and a child with dyslexia, or even an adult with dyslexia, is they just need so much more. But the process is exactly the same. And so I was like, well, gee, I wish I had some phonics, just a basic little, I figuring a 10-page booklet or something like that. And Tucson, for being hundreds of thousands of people, is also a small town. I meet somebody, they know somebody kind of thing. And so Dr. Mather, Nancy Mather, she was a professor. She recently retired at the university. She's also a co-author of the Woodcock-Johnson, which I did not know at the time. I just thought, oh, I've heard about her. I hear she's a nice person. I emailed her, could we meet so I can talk about phonics? And she has been awesome and amazing. And now I find out, wow, she's like, she gave me help. and so I was like, yeah, okay, I got those notes. Someday I'll get back to that book. And so I was like, I'll write a book someday, which starts at the very beginning of just a few letters and moves on. Well, then a lot of homeschoolers, and we do cooperatives. And so we all get together, every parent teaches a class. We're now virtual, just like everybody else. I just did a history simulations for westward expansion. I'm about to do that with World War II. I mean, we teach all kinds of things. I've taught animal classes. I've taught building, moving things with popsicle sticks. Well, they said, would you teach a class on phonics? Because everybody knows I write these books. And I said, yes, because we had two boys that, a lot of homeschoolers, they're single income families, and some make a lot of financial sacrifices to homeschool their kids. And so with these two families, they're in that situation, and they were each teaching their kids with explicit systematic phonics. That's the lingo. So basically, adding a bit of phonics at a time. And they didn't have the money to get the kids tested. It's really expensive. The school system at that time was set up that they made it so hard to get a homeschooled child tested that I gave up. I didn't, when I even tried it, and I just gave up. And so I'm like, okay, I'll teach these two boys. I figure I need to start at the very beginning. So I do I'm going to start with phonological awareness. And I knew that I had wanted to write books about that anyways, because I was getting emails from people asking for, do you have a program and stuff? And so I started writing these books. And so I walked in, after a few months when the semester started in January, end of January. And you've got them. The first book, the first book here, the Before the Squiggle Code. Yep. And even though these boys were 9 and 10, I thought, maybe they're missing some of the early things. The earliest skills are being able to hear a word in a sentence. And so you tap, if you're an older kid, you tap a pencil for that's syllables. Every word you hear in a sentence. For little kids, you can tap an elbow or a thigh or something like that. And, if you don't know what a word is, how can you read it? And so we did that, and then you move on to rhyming, syllables, and then identifying the sounds in there. So here are these two boys, they're 9 and 10. The 10-year-old could sound out CVC words, he knew some sight words, so he was able to, my step 1 books, he could get through them. The 9-year-old, here his mom has been trying explicit phonics using one of it's a nice series, or a book or whatever she was using. They just didn't have the phonological awareness skills. So I start doing that with him, and I'm trying to get him to read. He won't read. And his mom had mentioned he doesn't understand what a vowel is. So we did this series, and there were one of, I don't remember which, didn't understand syllables. So here 9 or 10-year-old kid, we're clapping what is a syllable. Although I obviously would not start out with a word like syllable. It's too many syllables. Thank you. And so the other kid had trouble with rhyming. We did that. All of the games that I have for free on my website, those board games, I played with those kids and they loved them, 9 and 10. And oh, because see, when you get the chicken card, oh my gosh, you might have to, this one's buzz like a bee. This one is go get, you have to go back to start an earlier point on the board. You have to be a jet, you know, be a plant, be a can of pop. They love those, even at 9 and 10. And so we did all of those activities. We did the, then we moved on to sounds. And so like my little train activities, oops, that train's upside down. That was beginning, middle, end sounds. And I will say, my daughter's speech pathologist used these beginning, middle, end sounds with a challenging 5-year-old she had. Friday at 5 o'clock, worst time of the week to do a session, but that's the only time he could do. And he didn't like anything. And she did this activity with him. And he was engaged for an hour. And at the end, he said, that was fun. So that is key to me, that the kids were liking it. So we get through this homeschool phonics class. We had 12 weeks. Both boys missed a number of weeks. And the 9-year-old who had been struggling to read, whose mom said he did not understand vowels, one of the things that I did is teaching tapping when a child is learning to sound out. So app, and it's in my parents' books. I was working with him on sounds because what he wanted to do was go tap, and so it helped me see, oh, he's combining those sounds. So we got that. We had maybe 1 or 2 weeks where we could do the second book, which is where you start introducing the letters and the letter sounds. I got it here, Faith, or not Faith, Marion. I've got it. So, and then summer came. And so over the summer, our co-op was still meeting for fun stuff. Kids were making forts. They were making those perler bead things. We're doing that. But no, well, we don't just do academics in class, but no official classes, and certainly no phonics. And so the younger boy's mom kept saying, you know, he's teaching himself to read. He's teaching himself to read. And and it was like, okay, so maybe he's learning how to read king and some of the more complicated closed syllable words. So August comes and I pull out my books and he just reads them. This is a kid who refused to read and suddenly he's reading them. So I have this little assessment test that Dr. Mather had recommended I make. And so he read, it's just by my steps, you know, if your kid can read this, this is the level he's at. He read every single word on that thing. And that was books that I still haven't released because I'm still working on the final one. And it was like, he does not have dyslexia. He was just missing those basic phonological skills. And once he got those, he was able to take himself off. And so it was one of the most satisfying experiences of my life to know that I gave him the materials in a fun, understandable way that helped him become a reader. And so that's the one thing I will tell people, make sure they get those phonological skills because a lot of the programs out there don't offer that.
Definitely. I mean, I think Faith calls it dystechia sometimes, that it may not be dyslexia. It's often a teaching issue. And this story that you just shared was clearly that this child had not received training in the phonological and phonemic awareness skills that he needed to be a successful reader. And, you know, lo and behold, he took off. So it's a great story. And, you know, just to get back to your books and for parents who want to work with their own children, you've made it easy with this roadmap, with your assessments. And, you know, sometimes that's some of the hardest things for parents. And I talk to Faith a lot about it because I always say I'm like the litmus test. If I can't figure out how to use something, you know, clearly other people may be having the same issue. And I think the fact that, you know, you've got this logical progression with your books, you have options, whether you want lesser words or more words, you have the website. And what's really great too, to, you know, jump ahead to all the chapter books you created is now you have a nice scope and sequence. So you could follow along, you could make sure that the child is mastering the skills and they can enjoy your books, you know, as they get the instruction and practice. gosh, you know, I didn't make the announcement that you're in Tucson. Between your internet and my internet, I don't even have Tucson. I can't even say, well, I'm in a rural area in Tucson, and I get these notices. But another, so, you know, you really gave, I think, parents of young children a lot of options. One more thing I wanted to ask you too is for older kids, because you continued writing the decodables as your daughter was mastering skills and getting to different points in the sequence of her learning. Do you want to just speak to that a bit?
Yeah, so yes, the series is not completed yet. We have a long way to go. We have a lot of phonics to learn, and so there will be a lot more books coming. On my step 10, which is open syllables and 1 and 2 syllable words, there's 3 of them are written. I'm working on the 4th one, and she is getting older, and kids who will read these will be getting older as they go along. And so I have tried to make them, the books age partly because my daughter's aging, partly because the phonics. I mean, some people on the step 1 books, if you go to Amazon and you read the reviews, it's like, well, it's a really simple story. It's like, well, yes, it is. It's CVC words. And it's really hard to write those early books. But now I'm getting so much language, and I can, like, I'm writing about coyotes right now, but obviously I can't do coyotes, but I can say wild canid, and I get to bring in vocabulary. And I have a science fiction series that's starting in step 10, and so it's just the language is expanding, the kids are getting older, and so that's really, really fun. And there will come a point that a typical learner is going to drop off. They're not going to need decodables anymore. They're going to be like that one boy I had, that there's going to be a point that they're just going to start to get it and they're going to go on. But for the kids with dyslexia, even the adults with dyslexia, having the slow progression, gradual progression, will make all of the difference. I do want to say something just so I don't forget it. And I want to tell librarians that I am so happy that people are starting to, they have, Dyslexia Awareness Month, and they're setting up their displays of decodable books. And I would ask them to consider making those year-long, because what happens if a parent walks in November 1st? Does that mean that, and they don't know that they can go to the librarian and ask for help? So, and that's kind of where I was, is I looked through the libraries trying to find, I didn't know what decodable books were at the time, but I would get these beginning phonics books that have, as I write in my books, they'd have words like leaves and Wednesday in there. And it's like, my kid can't read fun, and you're putting the word Wednesday in a beginning phonics book. And so if I had seen a display in the library, reading awareness, dyslexia awareness, how to teach reading, the day I walked in, whatever non-October day that was, that could have changed our path. And so that, I hope that librarians will set up a permanent display so that, and even put, talk to our librarian, we can answer questions if they feel comfortable. If not comfortable, then just having the display would be a good start.
Well, I absolutely agree. And I'm not even sure, I know we talk all the time, but we are, now that we put the program online, we have resumed our library system webinars where we're able to present to several libraries at once, maybe 30 to 50, about the process of how we learn to read, where the resources fit, what we're trying to do with decodables, and even our next program that you're part of, how to support patrons, through volunteers or through library contacts that want to show parents and guardians how to work with their own children. So absolutely, this is continuing on, and it takes the pressure off all of us of what we have to quickly pull together for October. We can help libraries all year long, and we're getting a lot of feedback, a lot of ideas how to make it easier for them to offer decodables and learn more about them, because it's not a one size fits all. And that's why I'm always encouraging librarians or anyone to join our Facebook group, Let's Talk Literacy resources and decodable textbooks. I think I reversed it, but our Facebook group, because it's a place to get unbiased feedback about the decodables, because what a teacher is looking for, if they have a curriculum and they have decodables crossed in already with the skills, versus a parent who's starting from the beginning, or a literacy tutor, there's not necessarily the next need, or even an older child, or just some basic information. Like I've gotten feedback from librarians occasionally, like, oh, I found a spelling error or a misspell, just a word in error. I'm like, what do you mean a word in error? Well, sometimes it's a nonsense word, and I have to explain that that's intentional, that, like in your book where you use like henpox, which always cracks me up. That sometimes, we can't use the word chicken yet. They haven't learned, they haven't learned those sound and letters yet. So, there's a lot to learn, but these are the skills that are teaching kids to read. And, right now it's starting, and we're just so glad that you're such a big part of our program. And I mean, I couldn't believe last week I was getting all these emails because you and another publisher, you sent something from your own stock to a library in Minnesota because they were starting a new display and they wanted your books. And we're so grateful to be in partnership. I feel like we work together. I've read your books. I know so much about your books. You know so much about what we're doing. And it's just been an amazing program. And I'm glad we can announce it to the world, and that you were here to talk about, your story and your books, and you're continuing on. And is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
One of my books that we haven't mentioned is not available in print format yet. And I'm getting a message, my internet connection is unstable, so I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
And it's how to use decodable books to teach reading. And the reason it's only available in either ebook format, or you can read it on my website, or even print it from my website, is it's not completed yet because I haven't finished the series. I don't have the complete scope and sequence, and I'm not comfortable charging people money for something that's not complete. But it tells you what our ideal learning day looks like. And I say ideal because, we are a real family, and, I got a cranky kid. I'm not doing all these activities. I'm burned out. I'm overwhelmed. We're not doing it. So I call it ideal. And it's what I was taught by my daughter's first tutor, who has a PhD in learning disabilities. Dr. Mather, edited it. So it's really the kind of activities, and I made it so that, yes, it's written about my books, but the information you can use, if your kid doesn't like Dog on a Log books, then go find another series. There aren't a whole lot of systematic chapter books out there right now, but if it doesn't work with, my series, find another series. The information, the activities are going to be the same. And so someday that will be in a printable book or a printed book, but right now it is just printable format. And when I wrote that, I was thinking of a homeschool family that doesn't have the money to get a tutor and doesn't get support so it's there, and reading or any of the scripted programs, but it's free.
Well, I think we are starting to lose our internet, both you and me, at the same time. So I'm going to wrap. And thank you for this time. And if for anybody listening, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, we have Navigating the Education System with Ashley Roberts from the Dyslexia Initiative, and Denora Della Camara from the Dyslexia Initiative, Teach My Kid to Read, and Dyslexia on Long Island. So that will be a very helpful presentation. I hope to see you then. And thank you so much, Pam.
Oh, my discounts. We forgot to mention my discount.
Yep, we're still here. I didn't leave yet.
Okay, so on my website for this month, for Dyslexia Awareness Month, I have the collection books. So you can either buy the books individually, here is one book, or you can buy all of the books in you can see the difference in size in each step. So this is more economical. Some kids prefer the individual books, but the collection books and the pre-readers and this book are all 10% off on my website right now. It's not as organized as I'd like because I don't actually sell it and the seller's computer is glitching. But so 10% off, but you do have to pay shipping. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Very nice. Okay, we're gonna come back to Zoom.
Okay.